All right, I see lots of people coming on, so I'll probably just give it like another minute and then I will go ahead and just do a quick little intro and pass the baton.
Doesn't matter. We didn't get enough, huh?
Okay, so for the sake of time, I'm going to jump in real quick so I can pass this along to Michael. For those of you who don't already know this, Michael is the program manager for the Montana Food Economy Initiative, which we'll refer to as MFEI probably largely throughout this call. So just to let everybody know. And Michael led the community food assessment statewide that brought together a group of diverse stakeholders to build a coalition for food system work. And with that, I don't want to speak out of turn or say anything wrong. So I am going to pass this over to Michael, who can share more on the background of the food assessments that we're focusing on today. And then she'll go ahead and turn that over to the individuals who were the boots on the ground for those assessments so we can hear from them specifically about how that went.
Great. Thanks, Katie. Will you let me share my screen, please?
Yes, you should probably hit the share button and then it'll ask me to approve it, I believe.
Okay.
Here we go.
Yes, that's correct. Amazing. Thank you. Make sure this works. Oh, hold on. Wrong desktop. Sorry. Try this again. Desktop. Got a new computer and like monitor system, so sometimes this is a little bit exciting. All right. I know. Okay. And let's see. Does it look like you are seeing what you should be seeing?
We can
Presentation with
also
no
see your
speaker
speaker notes.
Okay. Well, look, you can tell what I was going to say, you guys. Okay. Well, I'll try this way without and just do it with that. Um, sorry, you guys. Okay. Now, is that better? We just seeing the regular screen?
Can still see your speaker
Oh,
note.
still on. Okay,
Yep.
still on the wrong one. Oh my goodness gracious. All right, let's try. Just this. Sorry, Katie, you probably should have hopped on a couple minutes earlier and figured this out with
Okay.
us. All right, let me get this back. Oh. Okay, so boop, boop. All right, is that better?
Perfect.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. Thanks for that. I appreciate that, you guys. I'm sorry. So hi, Michal DeChellis. So glad to be here. It's so good to see so many of you together. It's been a really great journey that we've had over the past several years. Just very quickly, I'm going to go through some of our project overview and some of the insights that we've had. while we've been working on this project, and then I will get to turn this over to our experts in our communities that are here today. So with funding from Western SARE, we've gotten to do 3 different community food systems assessments, one in Greater Helena, one with Nakota Ani tribes up in the Fort Belknap Reservation, and one in the Greater Billings area. So we started these in April of 2022, and we wrapped up in these in March of 2025. So we are almost ready with all final reports and projects on these. Briefly, some of the goals of the community food system assessment was to provide a quick snapshot in time of a community's food system. And, oh, sorry, my video went off. All right. To connect people and ideas across the state. We know that there's a lot of different work that's happening throughout the state, and we were hoping by supporting with an assessment, we could inject some momentum into different parts of work that were already occurring. And we also were trying to create and enhance partnerships that can endure beyond this collaboration. We don't get to be here forever, as we know, as an entity. And so we're hoping that a lot of the partnerships that people have created will continue. We know some of that is already happening in Helena, which is so great. One of the things we've also managed to do is develop a replicable framework for the assessment. And that I started with a general kind of process with this, but as I've gotten to work with all of these different groups, this has really grown and changed and gotten so much better. So appreciative of everyone's time and effort as we've been building this out. All right. So just a couple of things that I think we've learned from the project is that these broad-based coalitions matter. We know that it's so important to have a lot of different groups represented, a lot of different people. The food system is complex, so having different entities working together, food processors, producers, educators, extension, universities, this really makes this work better and richer so we all can better have an understanding of the food system. We also know there's a lot more happening than we realize. As we kind of got in depth the different communities, we were seeing how many other projects and how much other work was happening that maybe not everyone was aware of. And so this assessment has really helped unearth these and connect and make different partnerships than before. We know that keeping things on track takes capacity. So a little bit of this is, there was time for me and some of our local food coordinators to be engaged in this work, which was really, I think, helpful in terms of keeping us on time and keeping momentum going. And then as we know, it's all connected. There's not just one fix for a food system, and we can't all just build one thing from one place. So having everyone together has been really helpful to continue the work and make it stronger. And a couple thoughts about what becomes possible when communities lead their own food system work. We see a lot of greater ownership and lasting follow through when people are able to take part in and decide the work that they're doing. We know that can make it stronger and last longer. We have solutions that are grounded in local culture, geography, and values. It's all about your context, and doing these assessments and seeing the communities work together and think about truly the solutions that are going to work for them, I think has been really powerful. We've seen what happens when stronger relationships and trust that can weather change. Part of the coalitions working together has been them getting to know each other and getting to know what they're doing, and then also us going into the communities and better understanding what some of the community members have needed. So that's a big piece of this work, is these different relationships over time. And then when we have more diverse voices, we're able to have more innovation and creativity in our project work and some of the work in the food system. And that certainly has come across, and you'll hear a little bit about that today. One of the other big things I think that came about this is that the coalitions and community members are now developing shared language for talking about the food system. People understand what they're saying together and are able to have deeper conversations because we're all on the same page with some of our language. We're also seeing momentum for deeper systems change, including policy shifts, kind of looking into what is possible and understanding the landscape a little bit differently. Sometimes there are overlooked assets and talents that exist within communities. We've always approached this work with community asset, looking at the assets of communities. And so these are not always known. And so uncovering these and maybe even redeploying them in different ways has been a really powerful shift. We know that cross-sector collaboration is strengthening the whole network. So having these different food system sectors understanding and working together to problem solve and innovate is really good for the entire food system. Oops. And we know that culturally relevant community-led food sovereignty is definitely one of the things we're looking for and can happen when we have a good community work together. And I think maybe most importantly, having hope and energy, sometimes working in food systems can feel a little bit challenging. So having a group of people working with you and being able to rely on them and understand, I think has helped a lot. And we can see this happen in some of the communities. All right. So with that, I can definitely turn this over to our community panels. I think the structure for today is to have each of the different communities talk for about 15 or 20 minutes in their entirety. And then we'll have questions at the very end of all of our sessions. Each community will do introduction, share some of their community actions, talk about pinch points for moving forward, and maybe a little bit of the impact of the MFEI program. So I have in my list, we'll have Helena first, Fort Belknap, and then Billings. Does that sound good for everyone? And I think up first, Diana and Samantha, are y'all, did I get the right speakers, or is this you all who are taking over this section? Excellent. And I will stop sharing my screen.
And I'm going to start because I have their presentation.
Okay,
And
fabulous.
Diana and or Samantha, if you just want to tell me when to click, I will do so.
Thank you.
Well, perfect. Thank you. I'm Diana Hammer. I was part of the Greater Helena Food Coalition and I was on the coalition representing the Helena Citizens Council, which is a neighborhood district council, and Resilient Helena. And Mark Judeman is on the call, I see, and he was a key player in the coalition as well. So Mark, feel free to chime in at any point as we go through this.
Yes, thank you. My name is Samantha Ferret. I'm a local rancher outside of Towson, Montana in Broadwater County. My husband and I raise commercial and registered red limousine cattle. So I was on the assessment coalition to represent myself and producers in Broadwater County, as well as Montana Farmers Union. I work part-time for Montana Farmers Union as a membership ambassador, and being this assessment was happening in my ambassador region, I opted to be on the coalition, and it's been eye-opening and wonderful to share and learn, and I'm excited to share out with all of you. Thank you.
Next slide, please. So this was our coalition, some members of the coalition. We had a much broader group. We met for about 18 months. The first part was the assessment and then implementation. And the support from Michael and Western SARE, AERO, or now Abundant Montana, was really critical to bringing us all together. And we started out by just asking some basic questions, you know, where does our food come from? Where do people buy it? Where do they sell it? And in the greater Helena area, as Samantha mentioned, you know, it's Broadwater County, Jefferson County, and Lewis and Clark County. And so Helena is right at the bottom end of Lewis and Clark County. So it was kind of this greater Helena area. And we looked at our food system. From production all the way through waste management. So production, processing, retail sales, distribution, and then hopefully not too much food waste, but waste management, and food recovery. So some of the issues that we identified with production, we just don't have that many producers locally, and kind of our climate presents some challenges, like with the growing season, like trying to get things started early or keep them in the fall. So the shoulder season was difficult with not a lot of indoor growing space. And so it's hard to invest in production if you don't know if you have a reliable demand, and then trying to get your products into stores. So those were some of the issues that we identified with production.
And just a couple of other things. I mean, we know land is expensive, land is scarce. Broadwater County, according to the census, is actually the fastest growing county in the state, as well as Gallatin and Flathead, and Broadwater County is feeling it. And even within the last year, there's been 2 longtime generational farm and ranch families that have sold out. And so it is a looming threat. It's here. And so the production side, I mean, all of it comes together with processing and distribution, yes, the land and input costs, and then not having succession plans, or not having a plan for who will take over, whether it's a family member or someone else. So those are also things that I've seen throughout the couple years that I've been working on the coalition as well. Not necessarily that we heard in the survey, but still wanted to bring those around to light as well.
Yeah, it was such an interesting learning process, and we had such a great group of people participating, so many perspectives. When the meetings we had a lot of them, but they were interesting, and I certainly learned a lot. We also looked at processing, and so there's just it's definitely a limiting factor. Where can you process your food or your produce? And like in Helena, we've got this the new Union restaurant and butcher shop is trying to provide a local option for meat processing. And we also learned that for produce, there just isn't that much locally produced to warrant some sort of produce processing system.
Yeah. From the Montana Farmers Union perspective, I can share out that we are really into the cooperative business model. So we have helped create and gotten off the ground 2 new meat processing cooperatives, member owned. One is Glacier Processing Cooperative outside of Whitefish. And that was just up and running. Well, it was a previously owned meat processing business anyway, so that transition to Glacier Processing Co-op was a little less involved in some ways than our other one in Havre. So the Montana Premium Processing Co-op in Havre has been up and running for 2.5, almost 3 years, and that was built basically from the ground up after purchasing a cold storage warehouse from what used to be Schwann's up in Havre. So that has been successful, and there's still limitations to how many animals are able to be processed a year. They have, both processing facilities have great capacity, but there also isn't always a steady stream of livestock to harvest throughout the year. So that's an interesting dynamic also, but there is options, and people are trying. In processing, it is growing in Montana. I can say that.
Right, and then the next step in, that we looked at was, oh, sorry, not the next slide, not quite yet, almost. Oh, no, this is fine. Actually, you can move on to that next slide, actually, that's fine. What's is distribution, and some of the challenges, we were fortunate as part of our coalition, we had one of the first farm to table restaurant owners, Margaret Corcoran, started Benny's restaurant here in Helena. She and some of the other coalition members had like firsthand knowledge of what it's like to try to put a consistent menu together. Like people have, customers have certain expectations about a certain cut of meat on the menu, and you can't just buy that cut of meat. You get the half of it. You get half a beef, you get a whole beef. You can't. So some of those challenges and just trying to, make it help customers understand, help the restaurateurs provide a consistent and high quality menu. So it was, they were super valuable members of our coalition. And then I guess one other thing, we also heard that like for small producers, just trying to market your product is pretty much a full-time job. You're already busy with the production and then trying to get it to the market. So it was another challenge. And then I guess I'll just mention onto waste recovery. Helena, so this was the Greater Helena assessment, but Helena has the largest population center. So there were quite a few representatives from Helena. Helena has set some waste reduction goals, and as part of that process, we learned that 80% of our waste stream is divertible, and that does include food waste. So trying to educate people about how to buy in quantities they're actually going to eat, and then composting what they can rather than saying it and throwing it into their garbage can. So, lots of opportunities for public education.
Next slide, I think. So these are some of our top priorities that came out of our coalition conversations, as well as key interviews of folks in the Greater Helena area, as well as our community surveys. So we decided as a coalition to focus our efforts currently on the top 3 priorities. And this includes increasing the local food production, growing our regional economy, and increasing access to healthy foods. Knowing that these were the priorities, we went through an extensive project brainstorming session. It was awesome. We had all kinds of ideas ranging from a targeted local food marketing campaign, thinking what it looks like to create a food hub, how to promote more personal food production. And I guess long story short, we as the coalition knew that we had to do something time bound that we as the coalition could actually accomplish. So we decided to do an event that would aim at increasing customer interest in food systems and businesses, and also provide some education to our community about the local food system.
Next slide. So this is what we did. Oh, sorry about that. My slide must have got a little corrupted there when we emailed it, but we decided we wanted to do a longest table event. So host a community dinner, and we decided that, it was just, we really wanted to raise awareness about local food, and we thought if we host a dinner for 100 people, why don't we do that? So we collaborated with a number of our local restaurants, put together, I can't see it very well here, put together a really wonderful menu. We had local beer, we had local meats, we had local vegetables, we had local salad, we had special treats and wheat products, breads and cookies. And we sold 100 tickets in 10 days. It sold out so quickly. We were all shocked. We're like, oh, we're already done. So it was just really well well received within the community. And we also had a panel discussion from, again, the whole food, from production to food recovery.
And then we were crazy enough to say, yeah, let's do it again. So we had our second one in February of this year, and we took a little different turn for this one than we did our first community longest table dinner. So it looked more like insightful conversation around food systems. We planted community experts in different areas of problems in the food production system, like labor. And since it is our legislative session, we had some legislation experts and what is going on at the legislature around food system bills and things like that. And I think that instead of having a big panel, it was a big panel, and it was full of amazing people in our first dinner. But just having that conversation and getting people to connect was even more powerful in our second one. So it was great. The food was great. And people kept coming back for second, third, fourth, and it was really fun.
Yeah, and it was so lovely. I mean, this second one that Samantha just mentioned, it was part of the F Your Phone event that one of our local breweries, 10 Mile Creek, was putting on. And so we had little baskets, and we encouraged people to put their phones down and just really focus on food, family, and friends. And there's just kind of this happy buzz of engaged community conversation. And I really think, people love the food, lots of rave reviews there, but I think equally important was just the community connection. I mean, it wasn't well, I know we are online, but and just being together, sitting with people you may not talk to that often, it really just helps build our community. And I think that was a really good outcome. And we may be crazy enough to do it again in September. Oh, and I do want to mention, so another really good outcome that Michael kind of alluded to was, just building something concrete at the local level. And so our group, a subset of our coalition, decided, we really want to keep working on this. So even after our September one, we decided to form a working group under the umbrella of Resilient Helena, which is a local nonprofit. And so we're continuing to meet and function as so we, pun intended, seeded the process with the funding from AERO and Western SARE, and now we're continuing to grow that. Next slide. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's good. I was going to say next slide too. Oh, go ahead, Diana, please.
Oh, well, gosh, we just learned so much. That just working together, not in I don't know, I very much like applied science and applied ideas. And so we can talk in theory about things, but just putting, the boots on the ground, the dishes in or the forks on the plate, just doing all that together, and then being open to discussion, bringing in a diverse group of people, sharing their experiences, and just learning so much. And then we really spend some time thinking, well, how does this work? How can we do more? How can we support each other? And yeah, it's a small start, but I think we've really hit a nice nerve. The response we've had with the two dinners we've hosted has been really pretty incredible.
Mark, did you want to add anything?
I think I just want to make kind of reinforce the point about the connections that have been made, both through the coalition coming together and through the longest table. And as an example, John Brown, who's involved with Northern Plains Resource Council and has been involved with AERO for a long time, was near our table, and he's been kind of pushing this book, Future Gen, about what's going on in Wales, about caring for future generations. And there was somebody at our table, like right next to him, who had spent like 20 or 30 years in Wales and had connections there. And so, they had this awesome conversation, which I think has been going on since then. So, yeah, just getting together with people is an awesome thing.
All right. And next slide, I think. Thank you.
I think we're good. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Samantha and Diana and Mark. It's so fun to hear more about the longest tables. Keep me updated on your one in September that you might do. I still want to make another one. And I sure miss working with you all. I think is Josie on the call? I think we'll move on to Fort Belknap and hear from them. I don't know if anyone here is there though. I don't see anybody. Katie, did you hear from anyone to know if people were coming?
I did not hear, I'm not coming from Josie, so.
Yeah, okay, okay. Maybe I'll just join in a second. Well, I guess we can go on to Billings and Annika if we want to. Annika, are you there? Yes, you are. Hi.
Unmuted myself and started my video. I don't have a pretty presentation, but I'm good at talking, so I will just talk about our community food assessment that we did with AERO, now Abundant Montana. And I'll also introduce myself. I'm Annika Charter Williams. My family ranches just north of Billings. We're a multi-generational ranch. I was a founding member of the Yellowstone Valley Food Hub, who was also a big part of this coalition. And we just had a really good group. But again, I would just like to say none of it would have been possible without AERO or Abundant Montana organizing it. And then also the whole report kind of gave the coalition a huge comprehensive report to work from. That even as we move forward from our work together, the things like the Food Hub or me personally can go back to a lot of this data and see how we want to move forward with certain initiatives in Billings. We have a lot of cool things going on, but we have a lot of things that are tricky in our area. But I'll kind of go through the report and what we gained, what Michael kind of the steps she gave us, the information she gave us, and then what we ended up kind of doing in the end, and how that's been successful for some of the producers involved. So we were in the Billings area. It was a coalition of 12 individuals and organizations from the greater Billings area, including Bighorn, Carbon, Golden Valley, Muscle Shell, Stillwater, Treasure, Rosebud, and Yellowstone counties. I will say a lot of the survey information ended up coming from the Billings area, and not as much from the surrounding area, but a lot of our producers were from the surrounding area. So like community survey was mostly around Billings individuals, but a lot of our producers are from outside of the Billings area, which we've seen in local food production is a lot of people are outside of Billings, but our buyers are in Billings. Some of those people included, we had the MSU Extension, we had the World Wildlife Fund, we had the Yellowstone Valley Food Hub, we had myself, we had Agri Organics, which was a big connection as far as producers connecting with how to improve our food waste management in the area. We had a school nutritionist and registered dietitian on a lot of the calls. We had a few restaurants. We had Kate with Lady Kate's Garden. We had Northern Plains Resource Council, who is also just like a big driving force in the area for local food. We also had a representative from Montana Farmers Union. Actually, we had two of them. And then the AERO and Abundant Montana staff. And so some of the things that we kind of got out of our food system findings were the key community survey takeaways was consumer awareness, coordination challenges, distribution constraints, economic trends, food access, infrastructure challenges, labor shortages, meat processing, nutrition education, farm to school, producer challenges, and waste management. And again, I'm using Michael's report, and it's super comprehensive and super useful as far as us making decisions going forward. Again, I'm speaking from a producer standpoint and the Yellowstone Valley Food Hub standpoint, but I also think a lot of the other businesses are able to see the usefulness of a report like this and then the connections we made as well. And so some of like the things that were going well in our community, and then there's also some things that are very challenging in our community, I can touch base on. And then too, as far as like questions going forward, at the end of this, I can always address those. But trends of what is going really well in our Billings area, agritourism and economic resilience, policy regulations and initiatives, federal policy and production education initiatives. These last couple of years, local food has actually been pretty supported on a federal level and even on a state level. And so that's really encouraging. Something that's going really well in our area is the Yellowstone Valley Food Hub, as far as buying producers' products and then selling it into our community and our surrounding areas up in Red Lodge and Absaroka. Some things that have been really challenging with food production in our area, land access and affordability, market competition and funding, infrastructure and distribution, production concerns and resource conflicts, well water contamination, economic resources for production. And all of this came from like the community survey that Michael did. And and a lot of that came from actual producers, not necessarily like community members. Some of the top 5 barriers in supplying food for our local consumption is, and these are producer responses, is can't sell products for enough money to offset the cost of production. Demand is inconsistent. It takes too much time to sell locally. There's a lot of red tape and processing not available locally. And these are things that I've run into as a producer. I know a lot of our producers in the Food Hub run into. One thing that's really nice about the Food Hub is it's helping to collectively help address some of those issues as we move forward. But this report from Michael, it was nice to see that it wasn't just, it's a broader problem that needs to be addressed by not just something like the Food Hub, but maybe something bigger in our area if people really want to move forward on local food. I will also say one thing I find to be really challenging in the local food production in our, not just in our area, in anybody's area, is time. I feel like in the last couple 5-10 years that I've been super highly involved in this, it's always, there's a main people that are driving the driving force behind it, and at some point their capacity starts to become limited, and more people need to be brought in if a food system really wants to be changed in an area and driven forward. It can't always just be the same people pushing at it. It needs to grow in the amount of people that have capacity to work on it. And I think the great thing about local food is everybody eats it, and everybody eats food. And so a lot of people can start caring about it. But I do find that that's a limiting factor is when you have all the same people always working on the local food initiatives, their time becomes limited as well. And so some of the other things I really liked about our report from Michael and AERO was the touching on how we can grow in the distribution and marketing in our area. And there was a lot of connections made within our group on how those things can happen. And then some really amazing things that I've seen happen in our area in the last few years is the connection between local food and the consumption and access in our area. Ellie Ross in Hardin, she has been a huge driving force in the farm to school and food banks and pantry procuring local food. And she's been a huge supporter of the Yellowstone Valley Food Hub. And so that's something that's super exciting to see of those connections being made and like large purchases going to schools. So that has been a huge success story in our area. And we're expanding into other food banks as well. And then at the very end of our project, and again, I think I touched on one of the cool connections was the food waste recovery and a lot of our producers connecting on how we can make that more efficient in our area. AERO Organics and Swift Buckets are doing some really good things in our area, but it was this connection of producers and the food hub that was made some relationships going forward. So I'm excited to see what can happen there. And then our project at the very end, we did the Taste the Agriculture of Billings. It was a food map campaign, just highlighting what Billings already has going on in its area. And then hopefully like someone can take that on and help that grow. The food hub itself has done some of the community dinners that the Helena area was talking about. And I think those are such a good idea and are very successful as well. So that's kind of my high level assessment of our kind of coalition work. And again, I just have to give kudos to Michael and Abundant Montana for just driving this forward in multiple areas of Montana. It's such important work.
Thanks, Annika. That was an excellent summation.
Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't have a presentation for everybody, but I'm also open to questions about how everything went and what's happening in Billings.
I was going to say, I think that's what we probably have time for is questions for Helena Coalition and for Annika for Billings.
Yeah, I want to encourage everyone to jump into questions. It looks like Josie's unable to join us. So if there's anything that you do want to share about that initiative, please do, Michael. But otherwise, let's take some questions.
Cool. Yeah, we'll do questions and I can add some. Or even comments. Yeah, Emily.
I was curious, Annika, you said early on, it's been really great having this report and I use it all the time. And I was like, how do you use it? What are some of the things like, does it help you make certain kinds of decisions? Like, I would love an example to just hear what's happened and what you've done with it.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I don't use that all the time, but one thing, again, I'm relying heavily on the Yellowstone Valley Food Hub because a lot of my beef sales and everything go through there, was we all sat down at one of our meetings with Michael, and she went through this really comprehensive, detailed data report on what our community survey said from everybody in the area. And we were able to like hone in on who are the demographics in the area who are going to most likely buy local. And Michael, jump in on some of these because you were your report, I feel like you understand the report more comprehensively than I do, but just the one thing that really stuck out that we've used with the Yellowstone Valley Food Hub is the demographics of who is buying food locally and who to go after and what areas of Billings we need to be targeting in. So I would say that's a big thing that we've used from the report. And then also the connections we made with community members in the group. We've all kind of knew each other at the time that the coalition came together, but we just built relationships even stronger going forward. Like Swift Buckets and AERO Organics are kind of working together along with the Yellowstone Valley Food Hub to really hone in on waste management in our area. So, yeah.
Other questions, thoughts? I don't know if Diana, Samantha, Mark, if you guys have anything you want to share on ways you've used the information from, I know this is like a while ago, but yeah, Mark, I see your hand up. Go for it.
Yeah, this is more a comment actually than a question or anything. I just wanted to point out also that on the call today we have Blanca, who was involved with the last longest table, and Olivia, who was involved with both of the longest table events, as well as doing the study and everything. So just glad to see them here, and want to recognize them for the work that they did as well.
I guess I'll just make a comment about what we've learned from the two longest tables events. One, the first one was an evening dinner with is more of a meal, like a dinner. And the second one was more of a late afternoon soup and bread kind of thing. The first one was on a Thursday night, the second one was on Saturday night. And it, and then another difference was the first one had a big panel discussion with some slides, and the room setup was a little challenging because it's a long room, and trying to get everybody so they could see the presentation and hear was a little challenging. And then so the second time we thought, well, let's try it Saturday night. Let's try a late afternoon soup and bread with dessert. And then rather than having a panel discussion, as Samantha mentioned, we took advantage of the legislative session being here in Helena and having some important egg-related bills being considered to kind of promote some discussion around certain food topics. And I think that probably a hybrid of those two might be the best way to go if we go with a third one. Maybe a Thursday evening, more of a meal, and then more of a conversation and less of a speaker presentation. That's something that I think would probably be a pretty successful sort of recipe for a next longest table.
Although we were thinking about getting John Tester. We tried to get John Tester for this last longest table, hoping that he might be able to speak about the Farm Bill and things like that. And he had a conflict, but we reached out again to him for September, and he's interested if it works for his schedule. So if that happens, then we might be able to have a speaker.
That would be a very special speaker.
Diane, this is Robin. I have a separate question for Annika, but I'm curious about what is making you say go back to a full dinner versus a soup and salad or whatever it was. I'm like, what is it that struck you as more successful for the dinner versus the soup?
Well, that's just my personal opinion. I think so. The goal of these community dinners is to bring people together and raise awareness about local food. It wasn't a fundraiser. We just barely covered our costs. So I was thinking for what we sell the tickets for, I think and others may have a different perspective on this. I think the value of what you get we charged, I think $35 per ticket both times, and you got a full dinner the first time, and the second just soup and bread and some dessert. So I kind of think it's a little bit better value for community members. But we also, I should mention, we had a pay it forward option. If folks were like they didn't feel that they could really afford the ticket, there was an opportunity for scholarships, or if you were an intern, you're an AmeriCorps or volunteer or some other restriction on their ability to pay. So we wanted to make it affordable. So that was just a thought, that maybe more of a community dinner rather than a soup and bread. But it was delicious. All of them were really delicious.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Annika, let me just ask my follow-up and then I'll pass it on to you, Max. I'm looking at the report under the top barriers for producers. You know, it appears that 5 out of the top 6 relate in some form to labor. And I'm just curious to know what, if any, were the discussions that happened among you on kind of, you know, how do you tackle where does one go with that set of information?
Yeah. I mean, there was no concrete like solutions to that part of it. And I think you can see that kind of across the board in Montana or any farms and ranches is a lot of it just relies on the steam power of a few people involved in the ranch and farm, like the actual individuals running the ranching and the farming. And we see that with our producers too. And again, that it ties back into time. The producers who are involved in trying to keep local food production in our area are also full-time running the farms and ranches that they're on. So we didn't touch on it. I have no solutions to the labor thing, but it does connect into like why I think it is such a struggle sometimes for food to stay, like for local food production to increase, is you're asking people who are running full-time jobs to also like be involved. Like this is what happens with a lot of the producers in the food hub, is you're asking farmers and ranchers who are already running full-time businesses to also start another full-time business to keep local food production in the area. And so you're pulling from very limited resources. So I don't have any solutions to the labor. It's probably more of a state and federal initiative that hopefully folks can kind of take on of what that can look like for the future generations of farmers and ranchers, as I don't see it changing. And so I see it being pretty difficult as we go forward.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I got a question, I guess, comment. I was going to mention the labor, and even though I listened, somehow that 5 out of 6 top 6 barriers related to labor, that didn't register with me, even if I heard it said that way. But I know Joe Naaman Sessions here does microgreens, and he's expanding to more market production. Told me last fall that he could pay somebody full-time $15 an hour. He's got enough orders from restaurants. And I haven't been able to ask him this spring where he's at with finding help. But so I'm going to throw out a couple of ideas. We're providing some of our land here where I live to Food Share for Jonathan Hockett there, who's their nutrition specialist and kind of their gardener farmer to come out here and grow for Food Share. And what I kind of finally realized was, knowing there was a ability to grow food here, that I wasn't going to be the one doing it, but that if somebody else wanted to come grow, I'd certainly love to support it. And kind of dovetailing with that, John Brown got interested in this training program in Quebec, I think, where it's a 3-year program to learn how to be a market farmer. And he was thinking about sending someone to that. And then we thought, well, why don't we get that kind of training established here in Montana? So I think that's something to explore. And I think Abundant Montana, I think maybe Robin, we've talked about this, but Abundant Montana might, and I don't know if it's the Grow Montana Coalition, if it's Abundant Montana, if it's Farm Connect in Missoula, if it's all of us to, have some kind of working committee that looks for grants that could maybe kickstart some kind of a training program like that would attract people that want to come here and help learn how to grow food and maybe eventually go into business. That said, I think we all realize that the demand probably still isn't there. I think a lot of people are using alternative growers. I was surprised last summer to stumble on at least 5 growers in the valley here who I didn't know about. Some of them came to the farmers market for a while with their starts, and then later with their kind of August harvest. But a lot of people are selling on farm stands, and none of them. I talked to at least 3 of them that had never heard of AERO or Abundant Montana or Northern Plains. So there's definitely people out there that are doing this and are interested in it that we don't necessarily, they're outside our circles. I think that's encouraging because, it's not just us. And so the more we can do things that attract people, last night we watched Common Ground at the Sleeping Giant meeting, and the people were in the room that most of us didn't know that were doing some great regenerative ag stuff. And so when we have these events, we start meeting people that are our neighbors that are actually doing this and can build our collective efforts. And so I think we need, maybe the next step is to figure out and start thinking about beefing up our local how we talk about local economies, and that can go beyond food, but certainly food is how we're focused. And it's probably not a coincidence that what popped up on my phone as this call started was I get alerts from Michael Schumann, who does the local economy classes and stuff, which I did one that was based in Missoula. It was virtual, but it came out of Missoula. And I think we could try to follow up a lot more with that work. There's a lot of good resources there about things that are being done successfully to create more awareness about the opportunities for local economy. I think this the last thing I'll say is that I'm getting very involved in our local planning here because we have 2 growth policies that are coming to fruition in the next 3 to 6 months. And so it's an opportunity to say what we want in the future. And in thinking about it a lot and thinking about how to communicate the things people need to be tracking and whatnot, it seems the biggest limitation here is expanding the amount of people that actually know it's happening and finding a way to engage like more people, like 100 people in a community of there's 70,000 people in the Helena Valley. Why can't we find 100 to 200 people that actually want to, some of them meet once a month, some of them wanting to be on a mailing list, and kind of expand the networks that I think are supportive of this specific work, but are doing, it might be in healthcare or mental health or schools, but kind of get it. And we could find larger circles of collaboration. I don't have an answer of how we do that. I'm just throwing that out as something we might try to figure out how to explore as we go forward. And I'm curious what other people think of some of those ideas.
I see Samantha has her hand up. Thank you so much, Max. Samantha, do you want to answer? And then if anyone has thoughts on Max's question, definitely want to hear.
Yeah, sure. I hope you can hear me. The background noise might be a little much, but so I'm up here at Montana State University during the Montana State FFA convention this week. I think that our education needs to start in the school. FFA education is an agriculture curriculum with outside competitions focused on different ag components. But what I've seen and heard and experienced with FFA, it's all a lot of things, all the other different things they can do within the realm of agriculture rather than be the producer. And I think that education at the high school and college level on how to be in production ag could be pivotal. And I think that if it was less theory in the classroom on how to market someone else's farm and ranch product in these FFA agriculture education classes, and that it was actually like go out to the field, figure it out. I think that could be really powerful. And I think that we shouldn't wait for that adult stage to be teaching. So another thought I have with FFA, they have a supervised agriculture experience, an SAE project. They all have to have one. They can be paid internships, kind of. They could be a volunteer. So I've had an SAE FFA kid on my ranch and shadowing my husband and I on our cattle operation for 6 weeks, I think it was. And so I think more opportunities for those kids to be involved, boots on the ground with those SAE experiences could be a window of opportunity for us. So there's my thoughts, my grandiose thoughts, right?
I'll just hop on top of that, Samantha, with I'm also on the board of another nonprofit called Save Farmland in the Flathead Valley. And one of the things we're looking at is, just different ways of looking at reasonable models for growing food, and part-time or hobby farming, if you will, actually looks like it can be really helpful, certainly in the market vegetable growing sector, or maybe you're just growing storage vegetables. It doesn't require a lot of work all the time. And so we're looking at ways to increase opportunities for people who want to grow food part-time, and make it attractive to them financially without it being burdensome. And I mention that because there's a model out of Ohio, I think. Don't quote me on the state, because now I'm thinking it's not Ohio, but anywho, doesn't really matter. Where they've actually had really a lot of success using high school students who have their own plot. And they grow food. They're near a big market, it might be in Michigan and it's near Detroit or something, but at any rate, they're not far from a big metropolis. And the farm itself takes ownership of the distribution and the actual sales. But it's become an incredibly valuable way for kids to earn some extra money and learn some amazing skills. There's a story of one kid who actually came out of it with having raised $120,000 and covering all his tuition for his college education just from part-time growing in this context. So there's just really creative ways to think about growing if we give some really good thought to it. So just wanted to pass that on.
Nice.
I wanted to quickly share, Annika was talking about the Billings map that they created. I wanted to share that. So this is what this looks like. This is a glossy folded over like pamphlet. So it has the list of the organizations that are participating right now in the back. It's got the cover. And then Abundant Montana, I think Emily might still be on the call. She's the graphic designer for Abundant. She did just a gorgeous job of putting this map together and all of this work. So these are, Annika, are these still at the Food Hub? Do you know if maps are still there? Okay.
The
Yeah.
food hub, and then also participating businesses have some of those too. And
Amazing.
then, yeah, and then we put them in some orders and all that good stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, so if you happen to be in Billings and want to do an amazing taste the agriculture scavenger hunt, there's some fabulous places to go on here and get to have a pretty map. So this is what this looks like. I also just wanted to give a couple of resources that are coming up, at least from AERO Abundant. So when all of our project materials and everything will go onto the Montana Food System Resources Library, once everything's done, the Billings assessment is to the coalition and our team, and people are reviewing it. So that will also come out to the public soon-ish. We also are working on finalizing our Montana Food System video series. And I think there's maybe 7 up there so far. We are finishing up a few more on there. So if you haven't been to this website, it's great. And the videos are just fabulous. There are people throughout the food system in Montana who are sharing about their experiences. And then I'm also working on a guide to building food systems coalition, and that will also be out and on the website probably in June. So just to let you all know, these are a few things that are coming up as kind of follow-ups, closing out of this work. I also just wanted to say, Max, you asked about what Fort Belknap. I really wish Josie was here because they are doing such incredible work on their food sovereignty piece there. Very briefly, just sort of the work that I've gotten to do with them is to repeat a food sovereignty survey. They did one in 2019, and so, or I'm sorry, 2017, and we repeated the survey in 2022 just to see how food sovereignty efforts had impacted folks on the reservation. And if that is not public as of yet, I'm not sure exactly what we'll share of all of that, but that's something that more information may come out if that's what Josie wants. And then they have a Grow Through Agriculture grant to build a subterranean greenhouse. They are still in process of designing that. They have the kit from Greenhouse in the Snow, and they are working on finalizing the design, and hopefully that build will start in the spring, summer. And that's something that we're kind of supporting on in the periphery. So that's sort of very, very, very high level on what's going on there. Yeah, let's see. Blanca has a question. What if local high schools had a vegetable or fruit that pertains to this map, just like they have a school mascot? Oh my gosh, I love that. They would have a school harvest that they could adopt and can create a product for one time a year from that harvesting and sell. That is a great idea. I really love that. Let's keep that in mind. Share that to the schools, you all. I think it's fabulous. Does anyone else have any final questions, comments, anything I think we didn't cover? Or any burning desire questions?
You know that, Michael, if I can just jump in, that last comment, one of the members of the Food Coalition, who in Helena, who is now part of our local food group. Her name is Kim Lloyd. She works for our local hospital, St. Peter's. And she runs, her job is to go into every fourth grade classroom in Helena and talk about harvest of the month. And it could be beets or kale or whatever particular food it is. And they talk about, the I think they're usually vegetables. And then they actually make a dish. And, for those of you who are parents, the best enforcers of anything, whether it's seat belts or a new vegetable, are little kids getting their parents to say, hey. And so she tells stories of kids, fourth graders saying, Mom, we need to buy kale, because they made kale chips or they made some rye berry salad or something. So it's, I think it's a really great way, kind of going back to the, Samantha, your point about FFA and, even 4-H, getting kids involved at a really young age and thinking about the food system, or in a classroom for those who are city kids, I think it's really important to get them thinking at a really young age. So, thank you.
All right. Well, I think with that, unless we have any other final comments or questions, I think we can wrap up. It's so great to see all of you. Thank you from Billings and Helena Coalition for joining. So good to see your faces. I miss getting to talk to you all on a regular basis. And thanks for Abundant for hosting us. Yeah, I think with that, we can probably say goodbye. Have a wonderful, what is today, a Thursday? Good rest of your Thursday. Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
Bye.
Yeah, great job. Bye.